Welcome to Dare, the show for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders who dare to shape the future. Your hosts today are Ned Hayes and Cecilia Mariani. Dare is brought to you by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare podcast is happy to welcome Tisson Mathew to the show today. Tisson is CEO and founder of Skypoint, an AI platform that unifies your data sources and unlocks the power of generative AI for immediate, accurate, industry-specific answers. Now, before founding Skypoint, Tisson was CTO at Alignment Healthcare and Cambia Health. Tisson also led the team that built and operated the Amazon logistics tech platform that now powers Amazon Prime Now, Amazon Fresh. And so we're really excited to have Tisson on the podcast. Welcome to the show, Tisson.
Well, thank you, Ned.
Welcome to the show, Tisson. Very happy to talk to a fellow entrepreneur. I admire what Skypoint is doing. So would you give us the quick pitch for your company, Skypoint?
Absolutely. So I started Skypoint about 3.5 years ago, based on my experience around data. So the foundation of AI is all about data being clean and organized, and it's governed. And so you can produce analytics from it, you can make better decisions. So it is primarily around healthcare. And within healthcare, we focus quite a lot on senior care. So in the United States, there are about 65 million seniors, and that's growing by 10,000 seniors aging in every single day. And their care needs are significantly higher than someone who's younger and healthy. So the consumption of care is different. So Medicare primarily pays for that. And also there is some element of private pay. So we started off on the data and analytics side. And then about 1.5 years ago, right before ChatGPT came out and around the GPT-2 timeframe, so we started exploring the power of generative AI on that clean, organized data. So when data is clean and organized, you can use AI to chat with your data, which is instead of humans writing code, so AI is writing code to interact with your data. So essentially, the ability for humans to interact with data in natural language. So essentially, you ask a question, and that AI translate that into some level of reasoning and thought, and from that, it writes code or it writes SQL statements and pull data together. Also, we work in a very highly compliant industry, so we actually have a lot of unstructured data. So it's allowing humans to be far more productive for people who are in administrative roles or clinical roles to do their job significantly faster, with the ability to interact with data, and also do it with much better quality than making assumptions or waiting for a report or some analysis to be done by a human. So essentially, it's all about reducing the operational burden and logistics within healthcare and having the clinicians and care providers spending more time with their patients. So that is what we are really focusing on. So we have over 100 customers now. We consider ourselves as the leader in generative AI for senior care, and we have about 50 people in the company. So primarily AI engineers who build specialized language models, what we call it as an AI operating system. So for the senior care as a whole, we kind of divided it into smaller sub-segments, sub-industries, some for memory care, some for long-term care, post-acute, rehab, home care, home health. All of these are kind of chopped into smaller language models or AI operating systems. So that's why we are highly specialized for this industry compared to a chat GPT or a generalized model that talks about the NBA and the NFL and how to write a poem.
Right. Yeah. Well, it does seem like you are really laser focused on healthcare, especially senior care. So do you have a personal connection to this field, people who you felt a real passion to help?
Yeah, 100%. So I started with Cambia in 2014-15 timeframe. So I was really inspired by the mission and calling at Cambia is to truly be a catalyst for change in the healthcare system and do it in a economically sustainable manner. So you can always talk about change, but if it is financially not feasible, you cannot scale it or actually make it happen. So I started with Cambia, then went at Alignment Healthcare, which is primarily a Medicare, senior care focused Medicare Advantage plan. So that journey continued, and essentially coming into starting Skypoint, so I definitely had the background working through it. And then, so how do we create a data product or analytics product, or with AI, can you package it all together in an affordable way for all of these providers to use to truly become a catalyst for change, and if in a financially responsible manner, and it is feasible to scale.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have a connection with healthcare too. My mother is a doctor, my sister is a doctor. So you've also been involved in healthcare for a number of years. So what drives your personal interest in healthcare technology?
Yeah, I think it's two parts. And first is putting patients first or seniors first. So that is number one. The number two is supporting the doctors or the clinicians or the caregivers. And the third is how you make decisions in healthcare. There's a lot of decisions to be made along the way, whether it could be clinical decisions, could be social decisions, economic decisions, emotional, mental decisions. They all need some sort of decision support systems, and that existed in healthcare for a while. But the cost of it, only the super high-end health systems had access to decision support systems. So the medium size and smaller providers didn't have access to that. And the last one is, how do you deliver all of this with a serving heart, right? So this is kind of a thesis where putting the patient or the senior in the center. So that's where my passion comes in, is where if you have the right mindset around delivering this, and a technology is a true enabler to make it far more economically feasible to deliver that to a larger number of people. So basically, access to care is a significant burden. Now there is more telemedicine, there's more ways to get care to more people. That means we are improving, more of the healthcare standards in general, and bringing the barrier down. That's what technology does, is bring the barrier to entry down, so that there's more people getting access to the same quality as everyone is. So,
I see. So you focus on senior healthcare. What led your team to focus on seniors?
Yeah, so really good question. I think my background coming from Alignment Healthcare is probably the primary driver towards that, where I learned a ton on how the U.S. healthcare system works, and where we have about $4 to $5 trillion dollars to spend a year on healthcare, which is larger than a lot of the GDPs of very large countries in the world. That is just the healthcare expenditure in the United States. Off of that, about $1 trillion plus $1.2 trillion is going to senior care. So essentially looking at a very large government expense that is not shrinking, it's continued to grow. And our birth rate is falling, right? So essentially there is not enough people to take care of the older. So essentially there is an inverse problem in demographic shifts. So essentially, when you have reduced number of humans and you have growing number of older people, you need a stopgap. So if technology can provide that stopgap and the coverage to make the adult daughter to have better care for their parents or grandparents, or the family can be at ease. Otherwise, they're constantly worried about a mom is at home or grandpa is at home, who's taking care of that person, right? How their needs are met. So a lot of times, this is a holiday season, right? So a lot of families visit their parents and grandparents. Then they do see the conditions that their grandparents are living in. It's like, oh my God. So now grandpa or grandma should now move to an assisted living community or a memory care community or independent living community. These are the times they make that decision by actually visibly seeing it, right? So yeah, so you need a lot of heart in this whole thing, and using tech as an enabler. It's not like primary care over the phone, so which is a very different types of care delivery.
Got it. Well, earlier in this conversation, you mentioned the term operating system for AI. And I think that's an interesting phrase, because you're really focused on very specific applications, like how to solve specific problems that seniors are having. And, elsewhere we can read things about, data lake architecture, large language models. I wondered, though, if you could kind of unpack those technical details and tell us what it really means to build an operating system for AI. What does that mean in practical terms?
Yeah, really good question. I think that term has been kind of coming up in various circles. So the operating system, which means it has security and safety guardrails, where large language models by themselves, it's a black box. It doesn't have any guardrails. You have to build those guardrails. And then you need industry-specific embeddings, what certain terms and terminologies mean in an industry. That need to go into a vector database. You need all kinds of configuration and access controls, and that needs to be a configuration database. And if you think about that, it comes more or less like an operating system. It has input validation, output validation. It has I/O. It has network. So it is not a thing. It is a collection of things together. And if you put that right collection of the things, you can actually deliver responsible AI to your end customers. Beyond, you see a lot of demos and fancy, what I would say is conference, demos. People come into a stage and say, "Oh, look at this thing, and it does magic." But can you actually use it in production? It is like beyond a toy car or a demo, a concept car, drives out of the Porsche driving show, and it's like, well, it is coming to production in the next 10 years, So essentially, an AI operating system is something that you can use it in production.
Got it.
Compared to something that you see in a demo where they're just showing the engine and everything else is a concept. So essentially, moving from proof of concepts and things like that to production implementation is that operating system. We call it as AI stack per industry, AI stack per sub industry, or per your business. So essentially, it's your industry, your data, your AI, your future. All those combined together.
Well, that's very helpful. So, did you change course at any point with Skypoint? Has your company had any changes? What they call pivots?
Yeah, pivots. Yeah. I think we had probably two, it's a natural transition, I would say. It is not a hard pivot from, something that people think of like, if I'm a basketball player and I pivoted into baseball,
Yeah.
That's a hard pivot.
Right. Very hard, I would say.
Yeah. It's an entirely different sport. So our pivots are more, hey, I was a point guard, now I'm playing a shooting guard, right? Something like that. So within Skypoint, we started as a customer data platform, which is primarily around patient data or customer data, and then creating a unified profile. And that's where we started. So we naturally transitioned from that to more of a healthcare data platform, which we take care of providers and other ancillary business entities. So that was our next transition, where we kind of transitioned into the lakehouse architecture. And the third one was really the epitome of all. Think of it as like a two-way player, right? Is where you can be in offense and defense, and you play well on both ends of the floor. That's AI, right? So it's essentially kind of double down on what you've learned on your data and how to organize it. And the second is, how do you really scale that on offense? Is really delivering unstructured data and structured and all this prompts and reasoning, all of that together. Essentially, there's that two, transitions or pivots kind of led us to where we are in the journey. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people now, of course, are tackling AI. A lot of people have pivoted into AI. Cambia is doing stuff with AI and machine learning. So I'm curious, what makes Skypoint unique? What's your kind of secret sauce?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that is, we are very uniquely different from any other product. So essentially, you can always build something for your internal organization from scratch. That requires a large number of engineers. You need to go buy hardware from NVIDIA and
Right.
train. You have to have dev, prod, QA. And it takes a long time for you to really get these things to production. So what Skypoint does is, we bring that AI operating system to you for those specific sub-industries within that senior care healthcare market. So, and then you can work with us to customize it and configure it to production. So we basically accelerate the time to value significantly faster than doing it all yourself. And the second is, since we are industry specific, you don't need to go spend your time on training these models and the vector databases and all these embeddings on the industry specific things, which we already have, because we have 100 customers. So we have significantly more breadth and depth as a software vendor, which you can kind of collectively put to use compared to doing it all yourself. So we bring in the good side of buy versus build. So it's kind of connecting together is buy plus build. So we call it as integrated. And we also support our product. We have consultants and professional services to implement, roll it out, help customers realize value from it. So we are not like a vendor, hey, here is, we're not like a Gmail where like, hey, we sign up and tomorrow you're your own. But enterprise software doesn't work that way, right? So we have all of those, people and good processes, and how do you actually go through the generative AI journey? What is your phase one looks like? What is your scaling would look like? How do you put safety guardrails in? How do you get the feedback, the RLHF feedback to fine tune your model? So ultimately, it's your data, it's your AI. What we are bringing in is that industry dimension and the overall operating system to you, so that you can actually realize value quicker and much more cost effectively.
Yeah, so let's dig into the customer problem. What specific problems are you solving today? How are you making the world a better place?
It's a great question. I think I can give you one example that I was kind of going through 2 days ago and even yesterday. So this is the closing time, or we just closed the open enrollment time for Medicare, where Medicare beneficiaries pick the best health plan. We all have gone through that process, right? We are working at an employer and we are presented with a screen with like 15 different things. So you're like, okay, which one is best for me and my family? It's a very confusing decision. And most people don't know what to pick and where to pick on. And they call people and on the phone, and there is no interactivity with any of the stuff. So with Skypoint, so we have customers who are really taking our platform and making it a reality for Medicare Advantage brokers, to help the brokers to pick the best health plan for their clients. So essentially you say, okay, I have a client or a member that has COPD, who sees legacy doctors, who has on these prescriptions, and they need certain assistance with meal planning, transportation, whatever. Push that into our AI. It does its magic and comes up with, hey, these are the 3 plans. Here are the citations on why. Essentially, rather than going through 90 different options, it calls it down to a 2 or 3 where a broker can make that discussion with the client and help that family pick the right health plan for them. And it is interactive. So essentially, you can interact with this AI. It's like, okay, does it support an over-the-counter medications? And if it does, are these things covered? So the productivity boost is like 20x. So that is one paradigm I saw. The second paradigm is brokers themselves interacting with each other. So there's like 50 or 60 or 100 brokers. They have a ton of questions. Oh, this plan cover this? So the senior brokers are answering questions to the junior brokers. So when we actually played the same things with AI, and it's like, hey, can AI answer these fundamental questions like a senior broker would do? We were getting success rate of almost 50%. If we can improve that to maybe 60, 70, this is even at 50%, if 50% of the common questions can be answered, that is a huge relief for a senior broker. Then, because they are scratching their head like, I answered this damn question 20 times before. So, but junior brokers are, they're new, they're learning this. It's complex. Healthcare system is complex, and think of Medicare health plan selection is incredibly complex. So I'm just giving you one use case, which is practically in production in the hands of people, and they're using it to make decisions, right? So and think about this, apply that across insurance products that you would see for employer benefits or cars, or this example I just gave you can go far beyond healthcare, just those things. And I have numerous examples like this in various aspects of different roles, within an executive director in a senior level community, or a home care provider, or somebody who's running an ACO REACH program, who's analyzing claims. Like, okay, why there is so many specialist visits? Why, I have another example where we were actually asking our AI about why mental health check or a depression check was not done during a primary care visit. How many primary care providers missed those? So, and why? Was it not enough time? So these things are, people have numerous questions, and if AI can give concrete answers even 50% of the time, they can save that.
Mhm.
Okay, I know as a human, I can go research this or the other one, right? So yeah, so I'm just fascinated by seeing real examples with real things in real hands of people, because all of this comes down to engagement. And if you are not engaging with your end users, you have to be on the ground with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can't
Yeah.
be sending emails from your home office and they're like, I'm a remote employee. That doesn't work in healthcare. You have to be in the building.
Right.
If you are willing to be in the building with them, hand in hand, engagement starts. And then, you don't need to be, having training wheels for them all day, but sometimes you can disengage, but the initial, you have to be really engaged with your customers.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm curious what that initial engagement looked like for Skypoint and for you. I mean, did you spend a bunch of time in the ICU or in the back end of hospitals, or,
Yeah.
tell us some of your stories of getting customer input.
Oh my God. I've been in healthcare, health tech probably 8 years now, since 2014, 15. I think it doesn't matter how great of a technology that you put in hands of healthcare users, they won't touch it until you're in the building with them, opening it up. I'm putting hands on it. It's like, okay, this is how you use it. And if you think that, people will use your thing any other way, you're mistaken. You're in the wrong business. So yeah, you have to be in the engine room. Yeah. And if you are not willing to do that, it doesn't matter what it is, AI, data, reports. Yeah, even EHRs. I've seen providers skipping an EHR and writing notes on a paper, right? so so it is how the industry is in general. It's a cultural, right? Because it's not about administrative work, it is about taking care of the patient. It's that personal interaction that providers enjoy, right? It's not looking at a screen, like otherwise you have probably noticed when you visit a doctor, he's looking at a computer and typing and not looking at your face, and how frustrating that is, right? So now with AI, you can kind of change that paradigm, but you got to be in the engine room. Yeah. So this is not, there is a lot of hype about big tech companies, throwing out, oh, we got healthcare thing, I'm sorry, 99% of them fail because they are not in the engine room. You can't be sitting in San Jose and Redmond and New York or Boston and think that your thing will be used by a hospital chain in Louisiana without you being there. Good luck. So if you're in it, and if your people are in it, and they will be with you. If you're not, unfortunately, no. So there's a lot of big tech announcements that failed. You can think of Apple Health failing, Microsoft Health failing, Google Health failing. There is more failure in healthcare from big tech than any other initiative, right? It's a big industry. They all want to get in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They don't want to do the hard work that hand holds users through their journey. That's not their model. That's not their companies are built on. So that's the point different. We handhold these customers through technology with our product along the journey, and we are engaged.
Yeah.
The real facts. Yeah.
Yeah. So product market fit can be a challenge for many companies. So what is hard to identify the specific market needs?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a crawl, walk, run. The near-term needs are solving the most urgent and important pain points. That's easy. That what are the 20% of the things that gets 80% of the value? Like, for example, compliance check. Hey, I'm faced with this situation. What should I do? Right. So the current state is like you open 15 PDF files, read through all of them, call lawyers, submit a ticket. By the time the patient is waiting, or your resident is waiting for something, and you're frustrated. So ability to act, So that is kind of the early stages. I think the second stage I feel is more the agent UX or agent interactions, where you can actually tell AI to go do a job for you. So it figures out, hey, I have to ask 10 other people about these questions, and I need to collect all of these answers, and I will solve this for you, right? And the third is where you can truly put this into autopilot, right? Which is maybe 5 years out, I don't know. But the current phase is that a true co-pilot that is your everyday sidekick, your companion. So the next one is your agent, where it does things for you without you telling it to do what. Like, hey, I've been emailing with Drew all day long. Let's schedule a meeting. So the meeting automatically happens, right? So because take you out of the loop of constant messaging. So an automatic summarization. I was sitting with a customer yesterday about, it's like, hey, now most of my day summaries are written by AI. My Slack messages, my email. So, and I walk into a meeting and it was like, did you read Slack? It was like, yes, I did. AI read it for me, summarized. I got all the points. So I think this is what a hospital administrator can do, because they are getting zillion messages about all kinds of different things. And if a good summary with like, okay, here is the point, things that you heard, and there is like 80% banter, irrelevant communication, and here are the points that you can act on.
Yeah. So where will Skypoint go next? What are the next market segments of interest to you?
Yeah, I think senior care, we broadly see it as in 4 different major segments. One is, we call it as the seniors housing or senior living, which is independent living, assisted living, memory care. The second is home care, home health. The third we see is long-term care, which is skilled nursing, rehab, post-acute care, and things like that. And the fourth one is the Medicare, value-based care, Medicare Advantage brokers, and things like that. So that's essentially our core payer-provider integration. The next 2 segments of the market is medical devices, is humongous, that we haven't even touched on. And the other is pharma and life sciences, clinical drug discovery, quite a lot. So the healthcare ecosystem, just in the United States and across the globe, has enormous potential for specialized AI operating systems and AI stacks, and what we are doing in terms of expandability, without changing our core theses of, for adoption, you need engagement, and you need that white glove service to really walk customers through the journey to success. So I think that's our near-term future. And we also address industries that are highly regulated or ancillary to it. Like, for example, the government, that's a huge industry for us. What's the purpose of government? Is to provide all the social services, right? I mean, social services include healthcare, right? And jobs and welfare and all that. So essentially these are all, and also it's regulated, right? That's another expansion opportunity. Another regulated industry. So we see Skypoint playing a major role in AI in regulatory settings. And when there is regulatory overhang and logistics need to be taken care of in terms of how to execute your job, so, and putting AI to work in a regulated setting and making success in terms of driving productivity and efficiency there.
Well, and you're building something real that is really making a difference in people's lives. But in today's kind of overhyped world of Chat GPT, I think there's maybe a danger of market confusion. People hear AI and frankly, they kind of smell the hype. So is there a danger to your company that you get swept into that kind of AI hype without people understanding the real value that you're bringing to the table?
Yeah, 100%. I think you ought to always ask the question of what would you pay for, right? So yeah, you will get, there's a lot of tailwind so around the hype, but if you kind of stay real to the use cases, like what we were discussing, right? If you stay real to the use cases, to value creation, you can stay out of the hype. So as soon as you generalize something, then it becomes hype. So that's what we try to do is, if you look at the things that we are doing at Skypoint, all of our blogs and materials are very, 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 very specific. We are not talking about artificial general intelligence for all or things like that yet, which is not our business, right? So we are partners with OpenAI or NVIDIA or Microsoft or Databricks or DataStax. These are the companies who are making foundational changes. And they're doing enough in the market around the hype. So we are basically staying real to the real use cases and real customers. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. So we have seen so many incredible advances in AI technology.
Mhm.
I'm curious about where you see AI going in the future. What will AI mean in
Mhm.
10 years, for example?
Oh my gosh. So that is I think,
Difficult.
yeah,
That's the big question, right?
yeah. I think the technology scale, it can be non-linear, which means things that we think would happen 10 years from now might happen next year.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Or things that we thought would happen next year would take 10 years. I think the regulatory changes is probably more near to what than we think. I'm not saying like every government will regulate everything in AI, but there'll be more regulatory oversight on AI. But it's hard to regulate AI with humans and policy. You need AI to regulate AI with other AI. So I see opportunities where there is AI models that or AI. So think of that AI operating system having regulatory components, right? Like think of it like a motherboard, which is cooling fans, or circuit breakers to shut things down. So those kinds of frameworks will come to AI operating system. So when you think of AI in your company, you have to think of where's the circuit breaker,
Mhm.
if things horribly go wrong, how do you cut this thing off? So where's the kill switch? Yeah, I think those things are going to be more near than people think it is. So yeah, and you have to really watch for it. And so the other scenarios there is obviously the worst case scenarios of it's completely taken over itself and it's going to do its thing. I don't know if there is a real possibility if we can kind of, you don't know if there could be a ROG thing that could happen, or you let it flow by itself, don't have any oversight. That isn't good either. I think both extremes are really impractical. So having something in between where there is a regulatory oversight and then there is productivity gains. So the second, I think it's going to, I think it basically improves the baseline quite high, which means that there is more people will be able to do more things with the level of education experience they have than somebody which requires higher. Like, so your path to promotion can be quicker, where you can actually do things that you thought that are harder to do. Like, for example, me personally, my ability to write blogs or write content has 10x my improvement, right?
Mhm.
So if you are a decent enough writer, you can be a great writer. So that means there are less writer jobs. Essentially there is displacement of jobs, and then people can do things by themselves. So there is self-sufficiency. Actually, self-sufficiency creates resourcefulness, and that resourcefulness improves productivity, right? So you're less dependent on others, so it's faster time to value. So essentially kind of finding those use cases to economic opportunity for every country. And if you map that to the world, this potentially is the biggest kind of GDP change driver in the world that you can ever think of. It's primarily around knowledge work. And the other one is around combining the large language models and generative AI with robotics. We have
Mhm.
any surface of that. There is a couple of defense companies doing that, like Anduril is doing some of that work, some elements of Palantir. So yeah, so there is a lot of opportunities that can evolve in the space. I think every country in the world, if the prime minister or the president is not thinking about it, they are. Every country, every CEO, every boardroom is putting this thing as an item to discuss. And if you think you can ignore that and sit in a boardroom and be successful, you're wrong.
Right. The world is
Yeah.
really undergoing a massive sea change. And
Yeah.
I think 10, 20 years from now, it will be almost unrecognizable compared to what we have now.
Yeah.
So that's the future. But let's look back at the past for a second. You've been doing data science for a number of years. Cecilia and I have too, in different capacities. But we all have a background at Intel. We are all former Intel employees. So it's great that we're all on the call. I don't know if there are 3 Intel employees on the call. Does Pat weigh in? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you could just speak to your early work as a research scientist at Intel. What did that teach you? What kind of grounding did that provide you with?
Yeah, really, that's my, very first job getting out of school.
Sorry to go all the way back there.
Yeah, it's about 15 plus years ago. I think, the few things I learned from Intel, one is the the bias to action, is, we call it as Intel values. Scientific research, when I was working in Intel labs, you have to experiment a lot before you can take something to production. But Intel had very bad experience with recall. You push something into production, into factories, you can't go change that, right?
Right.
Essentially, the values.
It turns out hardware is hard to recall.
That's right. It's very hard to recall. So there is a lot of negativism around Intel's journey through far, right? Intel didn't make their moves towards mobile or the cloud or whatever, and now with AI, I think there is an opportunity for all, not just NVIDIA, to make a difference. Whether it could be the GPUs themselves or the computing infrastructure, but also creating operating systems for specific use cases that is assisted by hardware. So I believe a lot of things can go into hardware, hardware acceleration, right? Mm-hmm. So why can't we have a specialized chipset, as well as a configuration for healthcare versus others, right? So it's all software driven, but if you can actually put that into hardware, it can be furthermore value creation. So essentially what I learned the most is like, software is great. Software is, obviously driving everything, but how can we actually move things downstream into hardware? If you can downstream things more into hardware, things will run significantly faster, but you have to be careful what you can go into it, right? But if you think about medical devices, for example, and those areas, or scanning, like, so for image recognition, all the multimodal AI. So there is a tremendous opportunity for Intel in the market going forward. So, and others too. I mean, obviously, NVIDIA is the de facto king right now of AI.
That could change.
That could change. But it is great, and there is export controls, right? So there is manufacturing coming back to the United States, and it is coming back big time, right? So because this technology is a powerful technology and requires to serve national interest first,
Yeah. So, we haven't yet asked one important question. Mm-hmm. What's with the name of your product? How did you come up with the name Skypoint?
Oh, great. I think there isn't a whole lot behind it. So, I used to live close by to Intel in a road called Skyline Boulevard, so that's where, the Skypoint name came from. So it has more Intel affinity too. A lot of Intel people live there. Yeah, if you think of Intel, Nike, a lot of Nike people do, mostly Intel. It's easier for them to go hit the Hillsborough campus, right? Yeah.
Okay, so final important question. Our podcast is about people who dare to dream. So what do you dare to dream, Tisson? What future do you dare to imagine you are creating with Skypoint?
Oh, absolutely. I think there is one dream I have is truly, since I work in quite a lot in senior care, is all about, aging, how do you age in a high quality manner? So I think that's kind of a passion and dream of mine now, working through this, kind of seeing a lot of, I've experienced a lot with blue zones, for example. So we have some of our customers implementing blue zones. What are the differences with people who are living longer, healthier lives when they're happy, So, and can we codify that into AI and code and all of these kinds of things to kind of promote healthier aging? So our investment firm has an initiative called Aging 2.0, which is a consortium to really drive, not just the blue zones, but in general, how do we actually make that more available? What are the decisions early on in life you have to make to live longer, healthier life? So there is a lot in it. Yeah. But what are the things that why certain people in Italy live longer versus Loma Linda versus Japan, So that's kind of one of my high levels of interest going forward.
Yeah, well, that's a great interest to have. I hope that we all can create a healthier society where we can all live longer, more fruitful lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your conversation today. It's been a great time talking to you, and thank you for all the wisdom you shared. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for
the questions. Appreciate it.
Thanks to our guest today for their great insights on Dare, the podcast for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders. If you'd like your story to be featured on Dare, just contact us at info@darwaft.com. Dare is brought to you by Darwaft, the tech team that can make your vision a reality.